because there are certain things that we think about just instantly when we start transitioning to this lifestyle. And then there's other things that maybe don't get as much attention. And so today we're going to look at what I think are the 3 most untalked about steps to take when starting life as a digital nomad family. Hey there, and welcome to the Digital Nomad Family Podcast. This is the place where families who have or want to have a nomadic lifestyle come together to talk about the highs and lows that this life brings. We celebrate the joys and support each other in the hard. So, if you are a digital nomad family or will be in the future, this is the place for you. We're glad you're here. Hey there, and welcome to the Digital Nomad Family Podcast. I'm your host, Marissa from Family of Dashes, and I am so glad you're here. I'm really excited about today's episode because I think it's going to challenge us to think about preparing to be a digital nomad family in a different way, because there are certain things that we think about just instantly when we start transitioning to this lifestyle. And then there's other things that maybe don't get as much attention. And so today we're going to look at what I think are the 3 most untalked about steps to take when starting life as a digital nomad family. And I can't wait. I think it's going to be really good. I think it's really helpful. I know for me, when other digital nomad families talked about these things and gave me permission to think about these things, it made me feel more comfortable with the idea of transitioning to a digital nomad family, and it gave me the freedom to do it in my way. And so I'm really excited to talk about it. Before we get to these 3 things, though, I want to say a huge thank you to our sponsor today, Divi Agency Coach. If you haven't heard of Divi Agency Coach, it is a coaching business that helps other small business owners of digital marketing businesses or web design companies find the best next step to take in their company so that they can grow to the next level. And I am really connected to Divi Agency Coach because my husband, Eric, is the owner of it. And you might be thinking, oh, that's a conflict of interest, Marissa. But I really do not believe it is whatsoever, because what we have been able to do with our web design and digital marketing business, by we and our, when I say all these things with the company, it is 100% Eric. I don't touch the business with a 10-foot pole. But what he's been able to do allows us to have this lifestyle that we love. And I know a lot of people are looking for a way to become a digital nomad family. And if you're going to go the route of a web design or a digital marketing type business, I think looking into Divi Agency Coach would be a really good fit for you potentially, because Eric is really great at looking at the individual and saying, here's who you are, here's where your business is right now. How do we take what you have and get it to where you want it to go with the set of skills you have? And so just like its name says, Divi Agency Coach is a coaching business. And I think Eric does a really great job of helping people realize and reach the next step in their company. So huge thank you to Eric at Divi Agency Coach for that. Now, let's jump in, because I am personally really excited about these 3 things. So when you start thinking, when you start talking to your spouse, when you start talking to your friends, there are certain things that instantly come to your mind about, oh, we need to do this when you are transitioning to a digital nomad lifestyle. And some of them are going to be kind of, I don't want to say no-brainers, but it feels like so big that it can't be missed. So getting rid of a bunch of stuff. What are you going to do with all your stuff? That one is talked about a lot. And one day I'm sure we will talk about it too. We are currently living that. As I record this, 5 minutes ago, someone came to my house and got something off of OfferUp because we are currently in the downsizing portion of this lifestyle. And so that kind of stuff, it feels really big. It feels really obvious in a way. And so it's not that it's not important. It totally is important to talk about these things and think about the big important steps. And while I do want to talk about those with you, I think it'd be kind of fun to start this conversation of what do you need to do when you transition to a nomadic lifestyle with your family, is let's talk about things that maybe don't get as much attention, okay? So, number one, look at your schedule. By schedule, I mean, are your kids in different types of activities? And if they're in, let's say each of your kids are in 2 or 3 activities, maybe for your family to go cold turkey, cut them all out and say, you know what, you guys are going to do these up to the time we leave and then we're gone and that's it. If that's going to work for you, totally fine. But if you have the type of kid that maybe cutting all that out at once might feel like their entire world is being rocked, maybe start cutting out one and then a couple months later cut out another, and slowly over time work on eliminating them. Maybe one of your kids is in a dance class or a music class and there's kind of a natural end to it. Like maybe there's a concert that they put on, or there's a dance recital, or there's something. Maybe they're in a swim team and it's this one meet that is kind of the pinnacle of the year. Maybe try to work around that schedule and say, we're going to stay put until this is over for them. And I think that as a family, this is why I'm so excited to talk about transitioning to a digital nomadic lifestyle as a family. Because when you're a couple or when you're a single person, you don't have to worry about that, right? But it is okay to say, my kid is in this activity and I would hate for them to miss out on XYZ. And that's totally fine. The reason we came back to our home in Virginia and we are staying here for a couple months is because our kids made it very clear to us that while they do want to move forward being a digital nomad family, they would like to spend time with their friends before we left. They would like to go to the theme park that we have annual passes to. And the beach is very close to us. They want to hang out at the beach a little bit with their friends. They kind of have some stuff they want to do before we hit the road. And I would say do the same thing for your family. Say, do we have an annual trip that we always go on? Every single year, we have always done a camping trip on Labor Day weekend or something, right? Every year, we've always done this. Maybe trying to figure out if waiting until that is done, maybe it would be the best thing for your family. Maybe it's not. Maybe you are going to be totally okay and your kids are going to be totally okay saying, yes, every year we do this, but this year we're going to not do that because we're going to be gone. But I think it's important because us adults mom and dad, we have this idea of, we think, yeah, you're going to miss church camp this year, or you're going to miss band, with whatever activity you're in. Maybe the band always does a parade. That was a huge thing in my small town. The bands and the parades. Oh my goodness. Maybe, you say, yeah, you're going to miss that, but just think of what you're going to see when we get to India. Like, we have this perspective as adults that kids just do not have. And I do think it's important to respect where our kids are. Now, I'm going to throw in a huge caveat, right? I'm not saying if something is 8 months away and you're like, oh man, like that's really far away. Like that would kind of push us to putting off this lifestyle for almost a year. I'm not talking about that kind of stuff. I'm maybe saying the stuff that's a little bit closer, that if you're talking about missing something by whatever distance in time you're comfortable with. Maybe you're like, oh, we were going to leave this week, but if we hang out in America or whatever country you're in, if we hang out here for just a couple more weeks, then the kids would get to do that all-nighter that they've been talking about at that club they're in or their youth group or whatever, right? And so I would say just really break apart your schedule and understand that as adults, we understand what's coming, right? We understand the amazing experiences that await on the other side of saying yes to this lifestyle. And I do believe that, especially if our kids are older, that they understand the positives as well. But we do want to be careful to respect what they are losing at the same time. So we're going to talk more about this idea of leaving well in episode 6. And I'm really excited about that. And we're going to talk about specifically how can we help our children leave this lifestyle well. Because if you have, like us, older kids, they know what life is like in America. They know what it is like to have their friends. They know what their schedule is like. They have this really intense sense of predictability and security, and they're about to lose all that. And we want to just make sure that we end this season well, and we want to leave on a high note, not leave with our 12-year-old angry with us because they couldn't go do that thing that they had been planning for the past 4 months. I hope that makes sense. So that's number one. Look at your schedule and really break it down and figure out what is going to be best for you and when is the best time to leave. One more quick thing about this that I was just thinking of. If you are transitioning to both a nomadic family lifestyle and some type of homeschooling, maybe you're going to use online, or maybe you are going to maybe try to find a school a little bit in the country you're going to. But if your kids are in a type of school, whether it be a private school or a public school, and they're not currently being homeschooled, it might be a good idea for your family. It might not be. You just have to, again, it's personal, right? But is the best choice going to be to wait until that school year is over? I know a lot of people, they've made the decision to become a digital nomad family, and they do wait until that current school year is over, and then they start the process of saying, okay, now what are we going to do for next school year? And then I know some have pulled their kids out because maybe the school year just started like 2 months ago, and you're saying, I don't want to wait that long. And I don't think there's anything wrong with either of those two options. I just think it's important to really think through your schedule and say, what is the best fit for our family? So that leads us out of number 1 into number 2. And that would be, make sure your bodies are ready to go. I would suggest getting everyone into the doctor, the dentist, the eye doctor. If you have any allergies in the family, go to the allergist. If you need to go to the dermatologist for any skin things, get all the doctor's appointments in. And I think it's important to do that because I know for me as a mom, and I think a lot of moms are in the same boat, when we know that our kids are healthy, we're going to just feel a lot more secure about leaving. Now, if you are entering the digital nomad family lifestyle and you're looking at doing this for the next handful of years, there is an amazing, amazing chance that one of your kids is going to need to see a medical professional while you're living in another country. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with being somewhere in South America, somewhere in Asia, somewhere in Africa. There's nothing wrong with going, hey, you know what? this fever is not going away. We need to go to the hospital. Or so-and-so just chipped a tooth. Or their eyeglasses just broke, right? Things are going to happen and people are going to get sick or even hurt potentially, depending on, it's kids, right? They can just fall over getting out of bed. And so there is a really great chance that while you are living this lifestyle, you are going to be sitting in a doctor's office in another country. And that's okay, right? We get comfortable with that idea the more we travel, the more we see that there are people all over the world, there are kids all over the world that get hurt, that get bumps and bruises and the sniffles, and there are doctors all over that will help us. But if you're getting ready to leave for your first big, we're a digital nomad family now, where we've gotten rid of all this stuff and we are exiting our passport country, the idea of having to go to the doctor in that first country you land in, it can feel heavier because everything's going to feel new. Everything's going to feel a little chaotic at first because maybe you don't have a house for the whole time yet and you were planning to go and talk to realtors. Maybe you have language classes that you're going to take. Who knows what you're doing? You're just trying to figure out how to get to the grocery store, right? And so kind of the last thing you want to do on top of all of this craziness is figure out, they have something on their skin that I should have got looked at in America, and now it was there already, and if I would have taken care of it in America, I wouldn't have this stress on me. Now, there's obviously going to be things that happen, and like if your kid has strep throat, you have to go to the doctor, and you can't plan on that. I'm not really talking about these emergencies, just this, let's make sure that everyone is up to date. I would say for us, the biggest issue is teeth. Our kids are pretty healthy kids as far as their bodies go. My kids' teeth just want to fall out of their heads. And there is nothing worse than a toothache. And so I really do my best to make sure that anytime we're getting ready to leave the country for an extended period of time, all of my kids have been to the dentist and there's not anything happening in their mouth that we're going to look back on and go, oh, darn it. If we would have gone and gotten a filling, that wouldn't have been happening. And so I would suggest get them into the doctor, get to the dentist, get to the eye doctor if you guys have any glasses in the family. And something that we do that is really helpful is we get copies of the prescriptions, and especially the eyeglasses, because that way, if something does happen, at least you have a prescription with you that maybe you can get to a pharmacy and say, hey, this script was written by their pediatrician or their doctor in America. Will you accept it? And so it's a good place to start. So that is my second little talked about unknown tip for getting started. And the last one is you're going to go, Marissa, that is so ridiculous. Why is this even a thing? But I have a story. And it just happened. It just happened. Oh my goodness. The last one is to research the country you are going to like crazy. And I know you're thinking, well, no duh, Marissa. No duh, we're going to research it like crazy. I mean like crazy. To the point where you don't really have to look up anything to know about this country. As far as tourism, visas, requirements to enter and exit, and all of those things. And here's the story. We are headed to a little suburb north of Lima. We leave in about 8 weeks from the time of recording this. As I sit in my emptying house, getting rid of things, we leave for Lima in 8 weeks, a little suburb north of Lima. And we're so excited about it. We found a house that works for what we need. It even has an office space for Eric, which it was on the list of desires. But as we were looking for houses, we were like, oh, this is not going to work. The office gotta go. But man, we found a place. It checked all the boxes, super excited about it. So we said, okay, we'll take it from this date to this date. Great. We booked it through Airbnb, and the host has been amazing. As we were talking about being in Peru and what all we were going to do, Eric goes, wait a second. Can't we only be in Peru for like 180 days around that with a tourist visa? And I said, yeah, I think so, yeah. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I'm sitting there questioning myself now and wondering all these things. And he goes, well, we just booked the house for about 195 days. We're like, oh, man. So thankfully, it all worked out. We got in touch with the Airbnb host and we told her what happened and she said no problem. So we adjusted our exit date. And so we said, oh, we'll either come back to America a little earlier for Christmas, or we'll just do kind of like a stopover in another country before we come back to America. We'll figure that part out later. But we could have kind of skipped all of that roundabout and figuring out, oh no, we have it for too long. Now contact her, make sure it's okay, adjust the dates, all these things. If I would have just been paying closer attention, and if I would have really researched and really been to the point of when I went on the Airbnb app and I click in my dates, it tells you how many days it is. And I didn't, that should have been a red flag to me, because thankfully it all worked out. But what if it wouldn't have, right? Now I don't want to go down the what if route, because that's like a rabbit hole that we just don't want to fall into. But we do want to try to avoid as many of those bumps along the way as we can, because sometimes they do end up costing us money. And it's never fun to pay for things when you could have been like, oh man, if I would have known, then I wouldn't have done it that way. So really research the country you're about to go to. I would suggest going to the government websites. So as an American, I go to the State Department websites, always. They're going to have the most accurate and up-to-date standards as to what you need to show to enter the country, if you need to pay for a visa, anything that you're going to need is going to be on the government website. So I would always start there. And I know that can sound a little bit daunting sometimes. In my experience, the State Department has done a really good job of being laid out in a way that I can understand it. And the more you get onto the website and you read things, the more you're going to understand what it means. Some stuff you do kind of feel is its own lingo, but the more comfortable you get with it, the more you're going to understand exactly what they're talking about. So that's it. And I know that they're not your typical first 3 steps or 3 important things to do. They're not the typical things that people usually talk about when they are starting life as a digital nomad family, right? These are not the 3 banners that people are going to wave to say, oh, do this, this, and this. Like, these are not them. But I do believe that these steps are all very important steps to take. So that is my list of 3. But what about you? Is there something that you think is really important and maybe it's under talked about or just completely overlooked? Because there is so much to do before you leave your passport country on that first trip out as a digital nomad family. And it can feel really overwhelming, and it's really easy to forget something, right? So I would love to hear if you have a must be done but is not talked about tip or idea. I would love to hear it, because 1, I'm living that life right now, but 2, I do think it's important to help each other, make sure that we start this lifestyle well, right? So if you have something that you think should be on this list, I would love to hear it. You can send me a message on Instagram. You can find my entire family at Family of Dashes. And that is kind of our family travel Instagram account. We have lots of fun. The kids, they post things, they do reels. I love stories. If you go over there and you hang out in our stories, you will get a huge glimpse of our real life. Something I tell people all the time is, I don't know how to be anything other than myself. And so as I'm recording a podcast or doing an Instagram thing, I can't be anyone but Marissa. And I don't have a way to switch on to a more, social network appropriate person. I can only be me. And sometimes that's really raw and that's really weird because I tend to be a little awkward. I understand that. But hey, I think it's important to just be yourself. So I would love it if you would hang out with us on Instagram at Family of Dashes, get to know me and my entire wild crew of kids and my husband. Do we count him as a kid? No, I won't. I love him. So that is it. I'm excited to hear what you think of this top 3, and I'm excited to hear if you have anything that should be added to a list of little or under or completely overlooked topics as you begin a digital nomad family lifestyle. So that is it for this episode. I hope that you guys are all doing well and that you are traveling joyfully.